Hello students. So today we'll be discussing about the topic fertilization and embryo development in animals, which is a chapter of class 8th biology. Okay, so fertilization. How will you define fertilization? Fertilization is the fusion. Fusion of what? Fusion of two gametes to form what? To form a new organism. So the whole process of your reproduction means production of a new progeny, a new child from two parents, either of animals or plants, is known as reproduction. Now this reproduction involves two major steps. One is your fertilization and second is your embryo development, which occurs right after your fertilization. Now, fusion of gametes we were talking about. So, what is fusion of gametes? Which type of gametes? Here, two gametes play important role. One is your female gamete, and second is your male gamete. The female gamete in case of animals or in case of humans is also known as egg or ovum, and male gamete, as we all know, is known as sperm. So when egg fuses with sperm, it produces new organism, but directly new organism is not formed. It is a multiple step process which occurs right from the division of zygote. Now what is zygote? Zygote is the first living cell. Right after the fusion, when sperm enters into the body of female and fuses with the ovum inside the reproductive tract of female body, it forms zygote. Okay, now what is zygote? Zygote is the product of fusion of male gamete with female gamete, and it is known as the first cell of an organism. It is the first cell of an organism, and from this single cell, the whole organism develops. Okay, so let's see how this happens. So we were talking about fertilization. Now, this act of fertilization only is of two types. Means the fusion of gametes occurs in two ways. One is your internal fertilization. Fertilization can be broadly distinguished into two types. One is internal and second is external fertilization. Now, what is the meaning of internal and external? Internal means inside and external means outside. But what? When the fusion of gametes takes place inside the body of mother or inside the body of female partner, then that is known as internal fertilization. Internal is what? Fusion occurs inside mother's or female's body. Okay, and in case of external, the fusion occurs where? Fusion occurs outside the female body. Okay, now example for internal fertilization is, the best example is us humans. Example is humans, where sperm enters into the female body and fuses with egg. External can be seen in case of frogs. Okay, where fusion of these two gametes, male and female gametes, occurs outside the body of female or outside the body of mother. Now we'll see how this external fertilization happens. So, considering the case of frog, frogs female lay their eggs in a mass, and mass that is covered in a mucilage sheath. Slimy sheath is present. Mucilage sheath is present outside the cluster of eggs, and this cluster is released in water. Okay, eggs are released in water. Now what happens? This was the case of female frog. The male frog is also present in the same water. The male frog releases sperm in water. Now, male frog also releases its sperms in water, okay, like this, multiple sperms. And because the sperms are motile means they have the capacity to move from one place to another. Why that capacity is there? Because they have this organ called tail. This tail helps them to what? Helps in swimming in water. The tail helps these sperm to move, to locomote, or to swim in water and reach where? Reach right to the eggs laid by the female frog. Okay, and then each sperm attaches or fuses with the egg and forms first cell called zygote. And then after the formation of zygote, the further process of embryo development starts. Okay, so I hope we are clear with this section of fertilization. What will happen here? This is an illustration like this. The eggs are present. Sperms will enter from each direction and will fuse, and each fused cell will form individual what? Zygote. Okay, these are different zygotes. Fine. Now we up till now we have understood the process of fertilization, that what is fertilization, what are the basic requirements for fertilization, how many types, broad types of fertilizations are there. There are internal and external fertilizations. Here we are purely talking about sexual reproduction. So that's why we are considering internal and external fertilization. Otherwise, there are different kinds of fertilization also. So we are not going into that topic right now. So here we are clear with the zygote formation. Now we'll carry forward the story from zygote formation to how a complete organism with all the limbs and all body organs is formed. Fine. Chalo, let's see. Now what happens when a zygote is formed? We have studied how zygote is fusing, but where exactly the fusion is taking place? For that, we need to study or we need to see the system of female reproductive tract. Here is a short illustration. We know that a fallopian tube is present. Fallopian tube is present for what? Fallopian tube is present for the passage of female gamete. What is that gamete called? That gamete is called as ovum. Okay, so this is an illustration, a small illustration. So here is your uterus. Okay, okay, here, here is your uterus. Right at the bottom of uterus, you'll find cervix, a small opening, and then right under the cervix, you'll find vagina. Okay, this tube-like structure, this whole tube-like structure is known as fallopian tube. Okay, the swollen region of fallopian tube is known as ampulla. This region is known as infundibulum, and the final end portion is known as isthmus. Fine. Now, the main reproductive organ. The main reproductive organ is here. This is known as the primary sex organ of female, which is known as ovary. And this ovary produces egg or ovum. Okay, now what happens? The story begins like this. When the process of copulation occurs. Copulation is what? The sexual activity when male partner penetrates into female body and ejaculates its sperm into the female reproductive tract. So the first point of entry of sperm is going to be this vagina. From here, the sperms will enter, and from vagina they'll move up forward to uterus. From uterus they'll go directly into fallopian tube. We have two fallopian tube, left one and right one. They can move to either side. And what happens in fallopian tube? This ovary releases an egg. This egg is catched by the finger-like projections present in the infundibulum region, and from there, this infundibulum pushes that egg into the ampulla region. Okay, and in that ampulla region, that egg waits. Waits for whom? Waits for the sperm to come and fuse with that egg. So in the meanwhile, the sperm is coming. At the ampulla, this egg is waiting, and here occurs the fusion. The fusion of sperm with the egg occurs at the ampulla region, and then this fusion forms what? Zygote. Okay, so this is the area where this whole process of fertilization is occurring. Now what happens? If we'll see the next thing, now what happens after this uh, production of the hair, after the production of zygote, the zygote moves down into the fallopian tube, from fallopian tube and down into the uterus, and from uterus it gets fixed into the wall of uterus, and that process is known as implantation. Okay, we'll see that also. Let's see how this process is happening. Here again we'll be seeing the structure of uterus and how things are happening. Okay, this is your fallopian tube. Suppose here your zygote is formed, and from here zygote will move down and gets fixed here in the wall of ovary. This fixation is known as implantation. What is implantation? Fixation of developing embryo into uterine wall. Fixation of developing embryo into the wall of uterus. Now you must be seeing, you can see the new term embryo. Now what is this embryo? From where does it come? It comes from the division of zygote. What happens while this zygote is moving downwards into the uterus? This is not just moving but also dividing. The zygote keeps on dividing, keeps on growing, and forms a structure or a ball of cells with hundred of cells called embryo. And then this embryo gets fixed in the internal wall of uterus and forms what? Fetus. Okay, and then this fetus goes for further development and forms a whole new organism. We'll see how. Now, we were talking about zygote. Zygote is your unicellular structure. Unicellular structure. Unicellular means one-celled. Now, in this one-cell structure, divisions occur. One cell becomes two cell, 2 to 4, and 4 to 8 cell stage. What happens up till 8 cell stage? The zygote size remains the same. The size of a zygote remains the same, but the number of cells inside the zygote keeps on increasing. How? See, here the size of zygote is of this much. In the 2 cell stage also the size remains the same, just the number of cells are added. And in 4 cell stage again the size of zygote remains same, only the number of cells increases. And similarly in case of 8 cell stage, the size of zygote, the size of embryo remains the same, but number of cells increases. So right after the first division, the developing zygote is now known as embryo. Okay, and the formation of an embryo is known as embryogenesis. Okay, what is genesis? Genesis means formation of something, and embryogenesis means formation of an embryo. So this whole process is known as embryogenesis. After 8 cell stage, the 8 cell stage, only the number of cell increases and size of zygote or developing embryo remains the same. After 8 cell stage, it doubles up and becomes 16 cell stage. Now, here the size of embryo also increases and it contains 16 cells. And the shape is not a circular or a spherical like, the shape is like mulberry fruit. What is mulberry? You must have seen the mulberry fruit. Now, what is the shape of mulberry? It looks like this. Mulberry-like appearance. And on the basis of this mulberry-like appearance, this 16 cell stage is named as morula. Okay, and after the formation of morula, this developing embryo again divides and forms 32 celled stage. And now this 32 cell stage is known as blastocyst. Again, definitely the size increases, number of cells are present, 32, and the structure is known as blastocyst. Okay, now the individual cells in blastocysts are known as blastomeres. That's it. Now, this is the stage. This blastocyst is the stage where this embryo gets fixed inside the wall of uterus, which is implantation. Okay, so at this stage, implantation occurs. After this, implantation occurs. And from here, this whole process of division of zygote and forming 32 cell stage, this whole embryonic stage is a lengthy process which takes about 8 weeks. So this whole process takes time 8 weeks. It takes the time of 8 weeks, which is roughly 2 months. So for 8 weeks, for first 8 weeks or first 2 months of pregnancy, the developing embryo is known as embryo, of course. And after the 2 weeks, when this gets fixed, this blastocyst gets fixed and further divides, after the end of 2 months or after the end of your 8 weeks, then this blastocyst or this embryo is now known as what? Fetus. This is now known as fetus. What is fetus? You can also say fetus is a mature embryo or a maturing embryo where organ formation starts. What is organ formation? For this occurrence of your hands, your hair, your limbs, your internal organs like stomach, heart, everything starts forming. Then that stage, that developmental stage is known as fetal stage. So we can clearly see that this was your zygote. Then zygote gets divided, formed embryo. Okay, and then embryo when got differentiated. When embryo got differentiated, formed fetus. Now again there is a term. What is differentiation? Differentiation is the stage where cells attain a specific function for the rest of their life, when they have been allotted a specific task that okay, from now onwards, previously you were only dividing and increasing your cell number and cell mass or whatever, but from now onwards you will be given a specific duty which you will have to carry forward and which you will have to perform for your whole life. And what is that duty? The duty of those cells are to form organs. So here the blastocyst, the dividing or developing embryo, differentiates into 3 germ layers. What are germ layers? 3 germ layers are your ectoderm. Ecto is the outermost one. Second is your mesoderm. Mesoderm is the middle one. And lastly, endoderm. Endoderm is the innermost layer. So all 3 layers are responsible for organ formation. These 3 layers forms organs, be it skin, be it your internal organ, be it your bones. The whole organism formation duty is performed by the mutual cooperation of these three layers only: your ecto, meso, and endoderm. Okay, and after the fetal stage gets completed, after these layers are formed and they form their all the organs, the shape of embryo appears something like this, and then it starts developing limbs and everything, and finally produces a baby. Now this baby term or the infant term is used after delivery. Once the baby is out of mother's body, that process is known as delivery or parturition, and the newly formed baby, not exactly the form, but the baby that has been expelled out of the mother's body, is known as an infant. Okay, now this whole developmental process from zygote till the birth of baby, this whole process is known as gestation. Not the process, the period I'm talking about, the whole duration, the period is known as gestation period. Okay, gestation period is the period, total time of pregnancy. Now this gestation period in case of humans is 9 months, and if we calculate in weeks, it will be 9 into 4, because approximately there are 4 weeks. So it comes about 36 weeks. But then again, this is not a standard. In few cases, the pregnancy, the delivery can be early, like 34, 32 weeks, and can be delayed also up till 38 to 40 weeks. Okay, so this was about your fertilization, the fusion of gametes. Then we studied how zygote is formed, how zygote divides to form an embryo, then how embryo develops. The process of formation of an embryo is known as embryogenesis. Then how embryogenesis leads to the formation of fetus, how fetus divides and differentiates and forms individual organs, and finally these all produce a new baby. Okay, then we also studied the types of fertilization, which is internal and external. Internal fertilization. Okay, one more thing to add on. Internal fertilization leads to the formation of what? In case of internal fertilization, the female partner or the mother, female, gives birth to young one. As in case of humans, we see that after the formation of zygote, a whole new baby is expelled out of the mother's body. All right, then such organisms, it is not a mandatory that it will be present in internal fertilization only, but it is an example. The example is humans. These are known as viviparous animals. What are viviparous animals? Viviparous animals are those which gives birth to their young ones. While in contrast, you'll also study about oviparous animals. What happens in case of oviparous animals? The female does not give birth to a baby, but it gives birth to an egg. The egg is laid and the embryo development occurs outside the body. Female gives birth to an egg. Which egg? Fertilized egg. And then embryo development occurs outside the female body. Okay, then that embryo development starts or the proceeds outside the female body, and once the developing embryo inside the egg is mature, that embryo or that developed young one breaks the shell of an egg and comes out as a new organism. Okay, so this was all about the chapter. For more clear concept, you can remove this internal fertilization. It was one of the cases in internal fertilization. Otherwise, I was trying to give you an idea about these two terms, viviparous animals and oviparous animals. The details you'll be studying in the next session. This I was framing a connecting link between the two topics. So that's all. Hope you will understand. Thank you.